help me welcome on stage Fred Wilson.
Week.
Welcome, Fred.
How are you?
I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
And you like Paris, right?
I love Paris.
Awesome. Great. Well, so please, I'll come back for a few questions.
Okay, great. Thanks. Hello, everybody. Loic asked me to talk about what's going to happen in the next 10 years, as if I had a crystal ball or something. But anyway, I'm going to give it my best shot and try to give you a feeling for how my firm, USV, and I think about these things. So when I think about the future and trying to imagine what will happen, we like to use big macro trends, and we like to think about how these macro trends come together. And that creates a framework for us to think about what are going to be the most interesting opportunities that are going to present themselves and how to invest in those opportunities. So we don't think about technologies, we think about trends. We think about what's happening in society, what's happening with people in terms of how people behave. The technologies are important, but we don't like to invest in mobile or big data or machine learning or those kinds of things. We think about them, they matter to us, but we really think about things from a behavioral and societal point of view. So when I think about the big, most important trends, I think of three. And I'm going to talk a little bit about all three and give some examples, and then I'll bring it all together, and then I'll talk about some of the things that I think are particularly interesting. And then Loic will come out and ask me some hard questions. So the first big macro trend that we think about is the transition from bureaucratic hierarchies to technology-driven networks. And bureaucratic hierarchies are the way that the world has been organized for the past couple hundred years. You see it in government, you see it in business, you see it in markets and the way markets are shaped, you see it in the way military forces are organized. And in those kinds of organizations, you have one person at the top controlling everything, and then a pyramid all the way down to the people out in the field. The people out in the field go out, talk to customers or whatever, learn things, and then feed that information all the way up to the top where a decision is made, and then that decision is passed all the way back down to the bottom of the pyramid, and then the change is affected. And of course, that's not a particularly efficient way to do things, but it has been the dominant way that the world has been organized. And the reason for that is that transaction costs and communication costs were so high in the industrial era that that was the most efficient way to mobilize and get things done. Of course, technology has changed all that. We're now in the information age, post-industrial world, and we are seeing technology-driven networks replace bureaucratic hierarchies. And we think we are just at the very beginning of this trend. I'll talk about three that you're intimately familiar with, and then I'll talk about what we see going forward. So the first I would talk about is Twitter. This is a company that near and dear to my heart that I got involved with early on. And Twitter, to me, replaces the newspaper. Okay, so the bureaucratic, hierarchical news organization, pick any newspaper that you grew up with, has a army of reporters who then report to a team of editors, who then report to a publisher, and they collect stories. The editors direct what stories are going to get reported on. They get edited. They eventually get published. The paper is printed in the old world, printed and delivered. It's a very slow-moving, bureaucratic approach to delivering the news, and yet it was the dominant way that news was produced for a long time. Twitter comes along, and all of a sudden, all of us are the reporters. The crowd is determining what news is most important by follower count, by retweet, things like that, which gets surfaced to the top, and we get our news instantly in a news feed on our phone. And so that is the demonstration of a technology-driven network, a network because all of us are connected to each other, And that is what is starting to replace the newspaper for many of us. Another example of this is YouTube. Similar story, the way that video used to get produced was in a very hierarchical structure, lots of decision making, very hard to produce video outside of that system. YouTube comes along, all of a sudden all of us are video creators. We publish the video, and again, the crowd determines what's important. Quality rises to the top. And now, with YouTube on my phone, I can look at the most important videos to me, and I get good stuff all the time. The third one, again, this is going to start to sound like a broken record, is SoundCloud. Loic mentioned SoundCloud. I met Alex and Eric, the founders of SoundCloud, here at Le Web 5 years ago. In 2008, we invested in them a couple years later. In the SoundCloud model, anybody creates audio, anybody creates music. They post it to SoundCloud. You don't have to go through a record label. You don't have to get signed. You just put your content up, which Lorde did a year ago on SoundCloud. You get found by the crowd, and you become the most popular act in the world outside of the traditional hierarchical system of radio and the music industry. So those are examples of where networks are replacing traditional bureaucratic hierarchies. And the first place we saw this was in the world of media and entertainment. And so radio and newspapers and television were the first industries to really feel networks replacing traditional hierarchies. But we're now seeing it in lots of other places, in hotels with Airbnb and One Fine Stay, which is a European company. We're seeing it in places like creative industries with Kickstarter and VHX. These are two of our portfolio companies, replacing the traditional Hollywood studio system. We're seeing it in learning. We have two portfolio companies, Codecademy for learning to code and Duolingo for learning languages, that use a similar network model where everybody teaches everybody delivered on a phone or a browser. So that's the first big mega trend. And if you think about that, we are really, really early in the replacement of bureaucratic hierarchies by technology-driven networks. The second big mega trend that we look at is what we call unbundling, and the theory that everything is eventually going to get unbundled. And unbundling is a little bit like the first thing I talked about, except it has more to do with how services are packaged up and taken to market. Not so much about the way the organizations are structured or the way the systems are structured, but how products and services are delivered. And if you think about it, in the traditional world, it was very expensive to package up and deliver things to market. And so products got bundled. They got put together, and you basically only got to buy the thing that, had everything in it. And technology, of course, is changing that, and now it's very efficient to package up and deliver things. And so everything is getting unbundled, and people are starting to deliver much more focused services, best-of-breed services, and you can buy them a la carte. Of course, the newspaper is a great example of that. You used to buy one newspaper, you would get world news, local news, sports, you would get business, you would get fine arts coverage, classified ads. All of that would come in one package. You'd pay one price for it. Now, on mobile and the internet, you get all of those services from different people, and they're better because the people who produce them are focused only on being the best at sports or the best at business or the best at classifieds. So that's the unbundling. Now, that's a story we all know pretty well, but there's a bunch of industries right now that we think are going through major unbundling. The first one I'd like to talk about is banking. So in the old world, it was very expensive to open up a branch and fill it with customer service people and tellers and service your customers. And so banks would offer everything. You would get your consumer loan there, you'd get your mortgage loan there, you'd get your credit card there, you'd get your small business loan, your big business loan, your working capital finance, all from the same bank. But what's happening now is that entrepreneurs, technology-driven entrepreneurs like all of you, are starting to pick off each of those lines of business from the banks and delivering them in a network-based business model. And we have a bunch of these in our portfolio. Companies like Lending Club, which is the leading peer-to-peer lending network for consumer finance in the United States. Companies like Funding Circle, which is the leading small business lending peer-to-peer platform based out of the UK. We have a portfolio company in Germany called Auxmoney, which is a peer-to-peer lending company for the German market. And so you see entrepreneurs taking very profitable lending franchises away from the banks and delivering them in a technology-driven model. But we're also seeing this in working capital finance. We've got a company called C2FO that does that. You're seeing it in asset management services and a bunch of other things that banks typically did. So we think the banking industry is rapidly getting unbundled and using the power of networks to do that. Another industry, of course, is education. You think about the classic university model, which has been around for, I guess, 600 or 700 years now. It was expensive to put a bunch of students in a room like this and have a professor up front. You needed a building to do that. You don't need that anymore. This talk is getting live streamed. There's certainly way more people who are watching this right now live on the internet than are in this room. You needed a library, so you had to print books, and these books were expensive. So you would build a library, and all the books would be there, and so students could go and sit in the library and take the books out of the stack and read them instead of having to buy them. Of course, that's not necessary anymore. Every one of us has a tablet with an e-reader or 2 or 3 on it and able to get books electronically instantly, and the prices are coming down rapidly, particularly for educational content. And then, of course, research, which you might think might still be a highly centralized and highly capital-dependent business, is also getting unbundled quickly. We have an investment in a company called Science Exchange, which uses a marketplace model, a network-based model, to allow researchers all over the world to collaborate. When somebody's got a gene sequencer in one lab and another one's got another expensive piece of medical equipment in another lab, they can collaborate together on an open public network doing their research. And so we think education is very, very much getting unbundled now. I think we're very, very early in that process, and we have a bunch of investments in that sector. And a third one, of course, is entertainment. This is, of course, obvious to all of you, but it used to be that you would pay your cable subscription bill and you get all of your entertainment content on that. Today, we get Netflix on our phone, we get YouTube on our phone, we get services like Hulu and VHX and others, and we can combine the entertainment product that we want a la carte on our phone, and with services like AirPlay and Chromecast, we can connect our phone to the big screen and enjoy the entertainment we want, controlled the way we want to receive it. So that's the unbundling thesis. That's the second big thesis, and I said that's a lot to do with how services go to market, and so there's an important mega trend there. And then the last one is probably the most obvious to all of you, and that is that we are all now personally a node on the network because of this device. And I want to just take a little a poll of the audience. So you have a choice, okay? You can't have both. You're going to have to choose between your smartphone and your desktop or laptop. You can only have one, okay? Can't vote for both. So if you were forced to make that choice and you could only have one, how many of you would choose your smartphone? All right. How many would choose your desktop laptop? All right. So you all couldn't see that. I could. I think it was about 4-1, be my guess. About 80% of us chose our smartphone and about 20% of us chose our desktop laptop. And I raised my hand for the smartphone. If I had to choose, it would be a no-brainer for me because I can do almost everything that I can do short of writing code or writing a book on I could even write a book on my phone, but I think that'd be very difficult. But there are things that I can do on my phone that I just cannot do on desktop because of the sensors that are in the phone, the fact it's location aware, and most importantly, because it's on me all the time. And there are many parts of the world, particularly developing world, where this choice has already been made. They've leapfrogged the desktop, laptop world because they could never afford that world. And they can afford the cheap, 99 or 49 unsubsidized Android smartphone, and the world is adopting them at a very, very rapid rate. So that's the third trend. And the reason it's important is that we are all now nodes on this network, meaning we are all connected to each other all the time. Not just part of the time, but all of the time. And that's really, really important. And there's some services which have leveraged that. I'll talk about three just to give you some examples. Uber and Halo. Halo is a company out of London, a portfolio company of ours. Everybody knows this story. I don't need to tell it. But the reality is that because we are a node on the network and somebody driving a car or a taxi is a node on the network and we can instantly connect and can take in where we want to go, this change seems like such a little one, is profoundly impacting the world of transportation. Of course, it's impacting the limousine business. Of course, it's impacting the taxi business. But it's also impacting the rental car business. It's also impacting the delivery business. And so we're seeing a simple, really simple move that in hindsight was kind of obvious, obviously not as obvious as it should have been to us in the room, changing the world we live in very rapidly. Another one is payments. Venmo and Dwolla and other Square and other services that allow you to have effectively a wallet on your phone, and particularly with services like Venmo and Dwolla that are peer-to-peer, you can literally send money to anybody who has that app on their phone as well. So it's peer-to-peer, it's a network, changing the world of payments dramatically. And dating, there's a service in the United States, maybe it's a global service called Tinder. I haven't dated in 30 years, so I'm not a customer of Tinder, but everybody who is young in my life tells me that it's a great way to meet people. It leverages location, it leverages photos, all the things that phones do so well, and it's a network. Everybody's connected to everybody on the network. So those are the three big mega trends. And so when we look at the future, the things that we say to ourselves again and again and again are networks, not hierarchies, everything's going to be unbundled, and you are a node on the network. And when we think about those things, those are the frameworks we look at, and every investment that we look at, we put through that framework, and that leads us to the things we invest in. So that's sort of the backdrop. Now I'm going to talk about four sectors that I think are particularly interesting. The first is money. And I talked a little bit about payments, but I think there is a lot more that is going to happen in the world of money very quickly, and that's because of Bitcoin. And not because of Bitcoin, the currency, and not because Bitcoin that went from 35 to 1,200 back to 700 and whatever, because at its core, Bitcoin is a protocol. And it is, in our opinion, the financial and transactional protocol for the internet that we have not had until now. Okay, we have not had a layer of internet infrastructure that was global, that was distributed, that was not owned and operated and controlled by anybody, that was truly a protocol until now. And what's most interesting about the Bitcoin protocol is that there is a ledger called the blockchain, which is global and peer-to-peer. It exists on every Bitcoin wallet that's out there. And so every Bitcoin transaction clears publicly in the blockchain. And so this is a technology-based architecture that looks like TCP/IP, it looks like HTTP, looks like SMTP, that entrepreneurs can and will build tremendous amount of technology and services over the next 5 or 10 years, and we will now see payments, money, flow on the internet in the same way that content flows on the internet, in the same way that images flow on the internet, in the same way that everything else that we've come to know happens on the internet, and it will not be controlled by any company like PayPal or Visa or MasterCard. Their lock on our money will be gone, and that's a big trend and a very investable trend. The next one that I think is important is health and wellness. And I'm not talking about health care. Healthcare is a complicated world, whether you live in Europe or you live in the United States or you live in other parts of the world. Government's got its fingers in it. It is regulated, it is expensive, and the situation is probably getting worse almost everywhere in the world. Health and wellness is the opposite side of healthcare. Health and wellness is what keeps you out of the healthcare system. And there, I think, these mega trends, all three of them, are going to come to bear in a very important way. Now, we already see services out there. We already see the Fitbits and the Runkeepers and the Fuel Bands and lots of other things where people are starting to wear devices that can report to them and to others their vital signs. And I think we will see more and more and more of this coming very quickly. We will see genetics. We will see the biology of our own bodies start to get available on devices that we will wear and can even be, in many cases, on the phone. My wife, Joanne, who's here in the backstage, is an angel investor, and she told me about a company based in Berlin, whose name I wish I could remember right now, because maybe the founder's in the audience, that has a little fob that you put on a device, I guess is probably the right word, that you put on your iPhone, like you put the Square thing on, and you do a little saliva, and it helps women with issues around ovulation and fertility. And, you know, that's not a device you're wearing, but nevertheless, it's a device that's connected to your smartphone that can start to get vital signs. And I think that some of this will be personal and private, and some of this will be network-based, and some of it will be you and your doctor, you and your caregiver, you and your family, or whatever. But this is a big, big deal, and I think it will allow us to be healthy and well for much longer in our lives. I know so many people who have lost 50 pounds in the past couple years because of the ability to sort of gamify their own weight loss. My wife tells me that Weight Watchers is the most effective weight loss program she's ever seen because of the peer pressure. But now we've added, you know, technology and gamification. And I just see lots of people getting healthier and better. And I think this is going to be profound and important. The third area that I think is really important for all of us to think about is data leakage. I'm not talking about big data. I think we all know why big data is so important, machine learning and all that stuff. But I read something a couple of weeks ago that's had a big effect on me. And what they said was, when the Industrial Revolution came along, we started polluting. And yet, we didn't do anything about the pollution, the industrial pollution, for almost a century. And then finally, we started to clean this all up. And it's a lot of cleanup and a lot of mess. And, you know, gee, it would have been better had we been focused on the pollution day one. In the information revolution, the pollution is data. It's the data exhaust. It's the data that leaks out. It's the data that's letting our government spy on us. It's the data that's letting Google spy on us and Facebook spy on us and other services spy on us when we don't want them to. In many cases, I'm very happy to have my government and Google and Facebook and others spy on me, but there are times when I would prefer that not to have happen, and we don't have control over that. And so I think that getting control over data leakage, both at the individual level and the societal level, is important. And that's somewhat related to the fourth big area, which I think is important, which is trust and identity. We have, in the tech industry, allowed Google and Facebook, and to some extent, Amazon and Twitter, to essentially be our identity service. We log into services all day long, authing with their services. And that's very convenient, and I do it all the time, and I'm sure all of you do it all the time, but essentially what we're doing is we're giving them access to everything we do. There will be, I predict, a Bitcoin-like service, a protocol that's distributed and global, not controlled by anybody, that's architected like the internet, that will emerge, that will allow us to do the same thing in a manner that we control, and that gives us control over identity, trust, and data. And when that emerges, I'll let you all know. I haven't seen it yet. I'm very excited about it. That's it. Those are my thoughts. I've got 5 minutes left, so hopefully Loic can come out and we can have a quick chat about all that.
Thank you, Fred.
You're wearing a Google Glass?
Yes. Why not?
Don't film me. Where do you want me to sit?
Yes, I'm supposed to sit here, actually.
That's correct. I was told backstage I'm supposed to sit here.
Sometimes it's difficult to follow. Thank you for sharing all of this.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
So I was wondering what you were thinking about Woz. You don't mind if I take a picture of you, right?
No, go right ahead.
Can I tweet it as well?
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. Done. So what do you think about this? Is that a trend or is that...
I don't see a lot of people walking down the street wearing Google Glass. So I think it's coming, but I don't think that this is the Newton of computers and glasses. I think it's gonna take a new form factor.
But the Newton is pretty good, I think, because the Newton, you would say, arguably was the first iPhone.
Right. Exactly. No, they'll get this right. I just don't think
it's not a segue.
No. It's coming.
It's coming.
Yeah, but I think. You know, how many people in the audience would wear this just walking down the street?
Just raise your hand. All
right, that's a lot more than I thought. That's probably about 10 or 15% of the audience.
Yeah, 10 or 15% of
Maybe I got to get with the program. Maybe I'm the Luddite.
So how do you see it evolve? You think it's going to disappear in our...
No, I think it'll...
Contact lenses?
No, I think it'll just disappear into the frame, would be my guess. It's too... I think it's too obvious right now, and I think there's a lot of people who have a negative reaction to it. Now, on the other hand, at least you're being clear about what you're doing. When it moves into the frame, I think then you know, in some ways it's worse because people don't even know that they're being photographed.
Yes, especially as there is no red light as it does it.
Right.
Anyway, that was the Google Glass question. I agree, it's a little intrusive. I wore them in the metro yesterday, just to see.
And? Did you get attacked?
Yeah. No. France is very secure, and Paris is a great city too.
No, I just heard that people have gotten attacked in the New York subway system for wearing those. So I guess.
Oh, really?
Oh, I guess Paris is just much more accepting of technology.
Probably. Fred, how do we get you to invest? You make, what, 1 or 2 investments a year, right? Not even?
I do 1 or 2 investments a year. Our firm does 8 to 10, maybe a few more sometimes. You know, anything that fits into that framework I just gave is right up our power alley.
So a new currency. Well, a new Bitcoin, we can come and pitch.
Absolutely.
How crazy do you like? Can you go? Like, so I was. I like to. I'll start a new business one day, hopefully, another one. And I like to. I like to ask what people think I should be doing. And I asked that question to Elon Musk 2 days ago. And Elon is like, oh, you should start an electric plane company. It might take you $1 billion in 10 or 15 years. But it's interesting. So are you looking like for, that's an extreme, of course. But
well, the kinds of things that Elon does, the electric planes and the Hyperloop and the SpaceX and the Tesla, those aren't things that interest me, and those aren't things that interest our firm. Those are great things, and I wish more people would do those.
Why not? It's too far away?
We don't have a view. We don't think we have a unique view and point of view about those. And, the venture capital business, like the business of entrepreneurship, is a very competitive business. And I think the only way that you win is by knowing what you're good at and what you're not good at and sticking to what you're good at. That's my feeling, anyway.
Okay. No, I would love to take more questions, but it looks like we're going to be out of time. So I'm going to ask you one more. So what are the 2 or 3 companies you're looking right now that you have invested or not? You're looking at right now that you think are really interested.
Things that we're already invested in?
No.
Things that we're interested in investing in.
How about what's your next investment?
Well, let me talk about a company that we just announced. I sure hope we announced it, because if we didn't, I'll be announcing it right here. So we invested in a company in the Bay Area called HumanDx. And HumanDx is trying to marry machine learning with human diagnosis. So they're taking medical school students, and they've created a game that medical students can play with each other, where they create cases and they solve cases. And all of this data then gets put into machine learning algorithms, and they hope to train these machines to essentially do medical diagnosis. And if we can train machines to do medical diagnosis, then doctors will have tools that will make them more efficient. People will be able to know even without going to a doctor, whether they're really sick. Then you start to get all the quantified self data going into those algorithms. And I think this is a very important thing. And so I'm excited about that.
So you're excited by the fact that we'll have more and more data about ourselves?
Correct.
But you're right. When you drive a car, you have a lot of data about the car.
Right.
And we have nothing about our body, right?
Well, other than the fact that we feel bad, right? We don't know why.
So you think, tell me about that. In 10 years, we'll be monitoring, we'll have a device that tells us
I think
what's happening in our body.
Yeah, I think in 10 years, and not only that, I think it'll change things like insurance. I had lunch with Max Levchin last week, and Max has a company based in China called Glow. And not only is it an app to help women who are trying to get pregnant, they've also built an insurance product as part of that. So basically what happens is you get the app, and if you want to pay some money, let's call it $1,000, $2,000, I don't know the exact financial details, you use the app for a year, and if after a year you cannot get pregnant using the app, they will pay for an in vitro, which is very expensive. So now you start to see entrepreneurs marrying the world of insurance with the world of quantified self and behavior-changing apps. I think there's just tremendous opportunity in that sector.
This is amazing, Fred. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I really want to thank you for sharing all the strengths, because that was quite a challenge. When I invited Fred to speak, I said, how about you predict the future for the next 10 years?
Well, I think we just kind of gave an idea of what it might look like.
But you did it great, and I hope you come back next year. I know you like Paris.
I'd like to be back.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Fred.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
When you shop with Bitcoin on Gift, you can get gift cards from over 200 retailers. Think of the possibilities. Not only is your holiday shopping taken care of in a snap from your Android device or on the web, but now you have a way to purchase everyday items from stores like Target, CVS, Gap, and GameStop using your Bitcoins. That's not even the best part. When you shop with Bitcoin on Gift, you get 3% back. Ready to shop? Visit GYFT.com today.